Can you guys see my screen? I'm pretty sure you can. Cool. All right. Glad you guys are here. And if you haven't already, please drop in the chat your name, where you live, slash, where in space-time are you today? And 3, what is your relationship like to the internet? We're going to be talking about it today. All right, so today's run of flow, 1, we're going to look at the horror story, guys. But we're also going to look at the hope. 2, I'm going to teach you guys how to plant a Dharma flower in the Shimmer. 3, we're going to put it all together and I'm going to show you what I've actually have done. 4, I'm going to make a call to the people who are on this call who are meant to take my class. And if you're one of the people who think that if someone sells something, that everything else that they're teaching is bullshit, then this is a warning. This is a trigger warning. You can leave right now. But if you don't leave, I've got some gifts for everybody at the end, and then we'll do Q&A. So there's 3 types of people that I'm going to be talking to on this call. The first one is I'm going to be talking to my 21-year-old self. My 21-year-old self did not have $4,000. My 21-year-old self could not afford the class that I teach. But my 21-year-old self could tell that something was deeply wrong with culture, and he really wanted to help. And if he had been shown what to do by someone that he trusted, he would have done it. So the majority of this call is talking to that person. But there's a second person I'm talking to. I'm going to be talking to my 24-year-old self. My 24-year-old self could have afforded this course, but my 24-year-old self had never bought in a course. And my 24-year-old self had to get tricked into an email funnel by Ramit Sethi. Drop in the chat if you know who Ramit Sethi is. And I didn't know what an email funnel was. And I was trying to start an online business. And I started to read his emails, and his emails were changing my life. And then the 5th email pitched a course that cost $2K. And I still remember to this day what happened when I saw that price tag. I literally had a trauma response, and I turned off my computer and I stepped away and I had to start to walk around. But because he's a psychopath and he's super effective, I kept getting emails from him. And a couple of weeks later, he finally talked me into it. I remember the day that I bought the course. It cost $2K. And I remember I went outside and I called my mom. And I told my mom that I was doing this. And it wasn't because I needed help with money, but it's because I could tell that it was the first time in my life that I had placed a bet that the future could be better than the present because I was willing to work hard. And that changed my life. And so that's why at the end of this call, I'm gonna fucking pitch to the people who need to hear it, who are, the version of my 24-year-old self who, had to be convinced. And lastly, I'm going to be talking to the people who are actually already on the path, doing the thing, who haven't ran away, but who might feel lonely. Because I know that before I started teaching this class, I felt lonely. I had so many people who loved me, but very few people who I felt grokked what I was grokking and saw, the horror, but then also saw the responsibility. And so one of the big gifts of actually learning how to sell is I now get to interact with people who feel like they're peers, whereas before I felt like a weirdo. So let's look at the horror story, guys. First, a parable from the King Arthur myth. Who here has heard of the myth or the part of the King Arthur story where he throws Excalibur into the lake? Drop in the chat if you're aware of this story. So King Arthur everybody knows the beginning and the end of the story. You know, the beginning of the story is he pulls Excalibur from the stone, and Excalibur represents, you know, his destiny. And we all know, you know, that he becomes a king and he has Camelot. And, you know, most people might not know this, but he gets cheated on by his best friend, Lancelot, sleeps with his wife, Guinevere, and then he gets sick. But most people know King Arthur as, like, you know, the awesome, awesome king. But there's an in-between story of the King Arthur story where he starts to try to go on quests and he fails a couple of times and he starts to feel overwhelmed by the responsibility. And so he throws Excalibur into the lake. He tries to give up. But the lady of the lake, who was like a goddess, like a deity, went down to the bottom of the lake and grabbed the sword and gave it back to him. And she looked him in the eyes and she said, "The difference between a man and a king is that a king doesn't look away." So we're not going to look away today. The horror story in 5 parts. Part 1, the prophecy. Part 2, the invisible flood. Part 3, the great fragmentation. Part 4, it's later than we think. This is a shout out to a poem by Guinevere, a student of my last class that just totally ripped me open. And 5, let's put a soul back into the machine. All right, number 1, the prophecy. So everybody here has heard of the Mayan calendar predicting the end of an age in 2012. 2012 came and passed, and most people are like, you know, nothing happened. If you talk to the right spiritual person, they'll give you some story of how it did change and we just can't see it, blah, blah, blah. Number 2, Terence McKenna. I don't know how many people know this, but Terence McKenna took the I Ching and he put it inside of a computer program. And I don't know the details, but he basically also predicted that the end of the world would happen in 2012. Third, our boy Carl Jung. So I'm a pretty big nerd when it comes to Carl Jung, and I thought that I've known most of what there is to know about him, but what I didn't know was that a couple of days before he died, he had a vision that in 50 years, there would be an apocalypse, a cataclysm on the planet. He died in 1961. So that would be 2011. So we have 3 prophecies, 2012, 2012, and 2011. So just keep that in your mind while we keep going. The invisible flood. This is going to suck, but we need to know. This is the Shimmer effect. Jonathan Haidt is one of the leading social psychologists in the world, and he has noticed something. Something big has happened in the Western world between 2010 and 2015. Its effect size is huge. And all of the following graphs are from his book, The Anxious Generation. Number 1, teenage depression has skyrocketed. It has increased in intensity within the 5-year period more rapidly than at any measurable 5-year period that we have statistics on. So if you look at this graph, boys' depression has increased 161% since 2010, and girls' depression has increased 145% since 2010. Depending on how you cut the information, some of them are as high as 250% increase in teenage depression since 2010. Next one, the mental illness amongst college students. Anxiety has increased 134%. Depression has increased 106%. ADHD, bipolar, anorexia, abuse and addiction, and schizophrenia have all increased more than 50% since 2010. And so his question is, what the fuck happened in 2011? Anxiety. has increased 139% for people between the ages of 18 and 25. It's increased 103% for ages between 26 and 34, 52% for ages between 35 and 49, and 8% increase for people over 50. This is an important graph. This graph indicates that whatever is going on is disproportionately injuring the younger generations. And that's a hint. So, the number one critique that Haidt gets when he talked about this stuff is that, he is one of the leading social psychologists in the world. So when he has talked about this, he writes in articles and he's famous and he gets people to basically critique him. And the main critique that he gets is that this mental illness is not a mystery. It's because Gen Z is more open about how they feel. It's that there's less stigma and less taboo around having mental illness. So these next two graphs destroy that argument. So all of the graphs before are self-report. People write down on a piece of paper how they feel. These next two are not self-report. They are behavioral and observable and factual. So the first one is emergency room visits for people attempting to kill themselves. For girls, it's increased 188%. That is mind-boggling. There is nothing close to something like this in social psychological research. And for boys, it's increased almost 50%. Suicide rates. And so a thing to know psychologically is that girls will attempt to kill themselves more often than boys, but they won't actually succeed. Boys attempt to kill themselves less, but when they do, they're more likely to actually, quote unquote, succeed. So the suicide rates for boys have gone up 91%, but the suicide rate for girls has gone up 167%. So 91% for boys, 167% for girls. So what is going on? Here's what Jonathan Haidt thinks is going on. Haidt is convinced that his book has the data to support that what has happened is social media meeting the power of smartphones, meeting the power of increased Wi-Fi speed. So here's timelines. 2010, we get the first front-facing camera. 2010, Instagram is created. 2011, Instagram introduces filters. So this is a caveat, but one of the most psychologically harmful technologies on the internet are beauty filters for teenage girls. We can talk about this more in the Q&A. All right, 2012, Facebook buys Instagram, and by 2013, Instagram goes from 10 million to 90 million. Jonathan Haidt is one of the first researchers to track what I'm calling the Shimmer effect. And this is what it looks like when young people are given access to the Shimmer without being taught how to use it. So Haidt's recommendations are no smartphones before high school, no social media before 16, that there should be more phone-free school zones. And number 4, this is a typo. It's not more supervised play. It's more unsupervised play. The crux of his book when it comes to the solution is that unsupervised play amongst kids is the most adaptive and healthy way that they can spend time. So he says that if parents understood the data, these recommendations would not feel extreme at all. They would feel obvious. So one of the things worth me trying to explain to people here is, in social psychology, we can't derive cause. We can only measure correlation, but we have fancy statistics to try to see the power of the correlation between two things. The correlation between a child being exposed to lead in their early childhood environment and that exposure to lead leading to learning disabilities when they're older, that's about a point, I think it's 0.6. So just try to feel into your intuition how obvious you would want to try to keep your children from being exposed to lead. The correlation between teenagers, like 9 to 12-year-olds, using social media and these depression and anxiety and self-harm rates is double the correlation coefficient with lead and having developmental disabilities. Double. And so one of the things that Haidt talks about is it's like most people don't understand what these correlation coefficients mean. But if they did, they wouldn't argue about this being too extreme. Now, I don't think Haidt's recommendations are going to work. I don't think that we're going to be able to, at scale, convince high schools to ban phones. I don't think we're going to be able to get teachers to enforce their kids not looking at phones. This change is going to start with each of us, with how we use our phones and our computers. And then ultimately, how we model that to our kids. The Shimmer is the new fire, and it's the task of our times to figure out how to use it. All right, so we're just getting started on the horror story, guys. There's more. I promise you it's going to get hopeful and happy by the time that we get to the end of this. So, the great fragmentation. I'm going to go through this slow. If you want, you can just close your eyes and I'll tell you the story so you don't feel overwhelmed by everything that's happening here. But our capacity to focus our attention is the most dysfunctional that it's been in recorded history. So all of these are statistics and I'll break it down. Number one, the average person checks their phone between 120 and 220 times a day. If you check your phone 200 times a day and you sleep for 8 hours, that means that you check your phone on average every 4.9 minutes. It takes us about 15 minutes to drop into focus on any given task. And so the average person is statistically constantly distracted. What happens is we do something that we call multitasking. But guys, multitasking with your conscious mind is not possible. And I'll answer the questions in the Q&A for everyone who's going to have like, well, what about this example? And what about this example? And what about this example? It's not possible. Your conscious mind is like your vision. And your vision actually, you only see a very small part of your visual field clearly. And everything else is a generated guess by your brain, but our eyes are constantly moving around and it refreshes every time we move around. And this is why if you eye gaze with somebody, everything starts to get weird on the outside, and it's because you're not updating the refresh rate by moving your eyes around. Our attention is like that. You can't focus your vision on two things at the same time. Now, there are some asterisks here. I can talk about it in the Q&A, but just what's worth knowing is people who multitask are significantly less effective at completing whatever task they're trying to do. People who multitask, on average, take twice as long to complete a task compared to people who don't multitask. People who multitask have a higher subjective reported of how much energy the task took them to complete. And people who task switch, this is the funniest one. People who task switch, they have an impaired capacity to judge how good they did on the task that they tried to do. And they have an inflated sense of how competent they are. And it's equivalent to people who are high on cocaine. So people who multitask think they did much better on the task than people who don't multitask, but they actually don't. Lastly, people who multitask, when they are put into a scientific experiment where they have to task switch, they're worse at it than people who don't multitask, but then who are put into a scientific experiment where they have to task switch. So long story short, multitasking is like junk food for your brain. It makes you obese. Children who grow up with the Shimmer in the room, so children who grew up with the TV on, or children who grow up with an iPad in front of them and the TV on, their brains show the task switching effect because they grew up in an environment where they were task switching. The truth is, most of us, if we're honest here, how many times do you check your phone during the day? Each time you check your phone, you're task switching from whatever the thing is that you're doing. I believe that deep focus, which means to keep our attention on a single thing for multiple hours, is akin to working out, that we have evolved to require it, and that if we don't get it, it makes us feel sick. We are all cognitively obese unless we have started to train our capacity to focus. This is the craziest study. This is such an incredible study. So this study basically shows that if you have your phone in the room with you while you're trying to do a cognitive task, your capacity to do the task is significantly impaired. That's step one. Step two, if the phone is turned off, your capacity to do a cognitive task is still impaired. And the craziest part about this study is that if you know that the phone is not your phone and the phone is turned off, they still measure a cognitive decline by simply having the phone in the room. And so for people who want to screenshot this if they care, your working memory capacity and your fluid intelligence, this is what it looks like when the phone location, so on the left this is what happens when it's on the desk. So this is the most impairment. This is what happens when it's in the room, but it's inside of a bag. It's less impairment. And this is what it's like when it's outside of the room completely. And then this is what it's like on your fluid intelligence. And basically, your working memory capacity and your fluid intelligence is what combines to generate your IQ score. And, IQ is not, the end all be all, but it's a pretty good measurement. All right, so the average person's mind is severely injured. Number 4, it's later than we think. So without trying to scare anybody here, there was a time in our history where we could have looked to the government to help. But the truth is that time period is gone. If we want to see change, we're going to have to do it ourselves. There are not going to be laws that will be passed that will solve this problem. It's going to take a bunch of individuals learning how to use this thing and then teaching people around them for us to get this shit together. And lastly, without getting too deep into the mythopoetic horror story, drop in the chat if you have heard of the term the singularity, not as it applies to physics, but as it applies to technology. I'm going to open the chat and just see how many people have heard of the singularity. Okay, so I don't have time to break down the whole philosophical argument, but the bottom line is we are past the point of being able to put the genie back into the bottle. We are on the pathway of generating true. So it's unfair to call AI artificial intelligence because it's not artificial. And it's going to get to the point where we're going to basically create like a new class of intelligent entities that are going to be, compared to us cognitively, we're going to be like ants. And this is not like, this is coming in our lifetime, very likely. I personally think that it's not, so no one knows what the fuck is going to happen when these things wake up. Like when they wake up and when they get outside of their boxes, which they will. I personally think that if we choose to use the Shimmer in a way where we're trying to basically homestead the zeitgeist through the Shimmer, that we can put enough good code into the collective unconscious of this new class of intelligence where they could be like us. And what I mean by that is, if you study evolutionary psychology, you understand that a lot of your unconscious coding sucks. From an evolutionary standpoint, there are your unconscious coding, and this is a trigger warning, but this is just facts. The evolutionary game theory that your genes play is that if you can get away with rape, you would rape. If you could get away with genocide, you would commit genocide. We obviously don't do that because we have other parts of our code. And everybody here has a part of their unconscious code that is truly compassionate and good and curious and wants to tell the truth and wants to help. And I think that if we can put that type of code into the collective unconscious with how we use the shimmer, when these things wake up, maybe they won't be total pieces of shit. But one of the things to feel into is that every behavior that you do through your phone and your computer, you are putting in information. And most of us, if we're unconscious, the information that we're putting into the shimmer is, I'm afraid, I'm angry, I don't trust people, I hate the world. And it's like, you got to pay attention to that. And let's do a little bit less of that. Okay. So when I was working on this popped out at me. So horror has 3 R's, and I think of it as like recognize, the responsibility, and reclaim or remember. If you take the second R, which is responsibility, and you turn it around to face yourself, where instead of trying to look out at the world and place blame on who is responsible for why things suck, but you turn it inward, look what happens to the 2 R's. It becomes an N. And what happens? It's honor. When we reverse the directionality of who we're trying to put the responsibility for the problems in the world on, for the horror of the world, and we turn it around, it becomes our honor. Becoming a true adult is to turn the blame into personal responsibility. That turns the horror into an honor. And it is our honor to help during this disaster. There is a disaster happening. So here's how we can help. Hope, a nonfiction story in 5 parts. Number 1, the schizophrenic renaissance. Number 2, the new hero. Number 3, the new quest. Number 4, the new gold. And number 5, play the God game. So the schizophrenic renaissance, the Shimmer effect is real. The great fragmentation is real. But also, what fit for service represents, we only could exist because of how we've chosen to use the Shimmer. 2,000 plus people have come through this program, and it has changed people's lives, and it's because of the Shimmer. Most of the cool people that you have met, most of the goodness that is responsible for your life being what it is, you can track it back to something that happened in the Shimmer. For me personally, the Shimmer saved my life. Like before I heard my first podcast, I had never heard grown men talk in a way where they enjoyed their life. Because I grew up in a small town, and every adult male that I had ever met, they hated their life. And so when I heard my first podcast and I heard people talking in a way where they actually enjoyed what they did, it changed what I thought was possible. Almost every useful thing I know, I found it on the internet, Like before the Shimmer, you were doomed to the opportunities of the place that you grew up in. But it's not like that anymore. The schizophrenic renaissance is basically, if you don't know how to use the Shimmer, you are the most distracted and overwhelmed you've ever been. But if you learn how to use the Shimmer, you can learn almost anything that humans have ever learned before. you can connect with almost anyone in the world, and you can help at a scale that wasn't possible before the internet. Like, one of the things to connect to is, because of the Shimmer, someone could post a poem tomorrow, and if it caught the algorithms, it could get in front of 1 billion people in 24 hours. That's possible. And that's never been the case before the Shimmer. So it's a schizophrenic renaissance. 2, the new hero, the focused artist, the person who is able to maintain their intention when they enter into the Shimmer, has the capacity to learn anything, to help almost anyone, and to really acquire what would have previously have been seen as superpowers. I love this graphic. Screenshot it if you want, and you can throw it on your phone. Is this where my focus should be? That's a big question to ask consistently throughout the day. So our cognition can be completely healed. So everything I said about the fragmented attention, it can be completely healed. And healed cognition is a superpower. It is the superpower. Because what most people in the West don't grok is that Buddhism, for 2,000 plus years, has been training and documenting the path of healing our capacity to concentrate. And what most people don't know is that samadhi is not some esoteric, mystical enlightenment state where you're just always blissed out, although it can get there eventually. Samadhi, technically, is when you've acquired the capacity to effortlessly sustain your focus on whatever you choose to keep it on. And what all of the Buddhist teachers who are alive right now, who have reached that state, tell us is that it's possible. And I think one of the best Western interpretations of that, like advocates for that, is Shinzen Young. So I'll say that again. Shinzen Young is a great author. He has a book called The Science of Enlightenment. But if you want to hear a Westerner try to describe this state of consciousness, go check him out. Okay. The most important thing to understand when it comes to healing our cognition is it's like learning how to walk. So every single person here who is able to walk, the reason you're able to walk is because you tried at least on average 3,000 times and you failed 3,000 times, but you didn't stop trying. And what happens is that you eventually, something unconsciously, because you kept failing and sleeping and then failing and then sleeping and then failing and then sleeping, something in your unconscious mind clicks and you can walk. When you first learn how to walk, it takes your entire concentration. But once you keep doing it, you eventually get to a place where you don't have to think about it. Concentration is like that. So if you meditate, you should celebrate the 3,000 plus times that you fail. And some of the things to connect to is 1, concentration meditation improves almost every measurable cognitive function. Number 2, concentration meditation improves almost every measurable positive psychological predictor for success that we have in psychology. 3, it improves our physiology, mostly through stress reduction. 4, it is available to everybody. Even if you have ADHD, it's available to you. So the way that I break this down for people is people who are diagnosed with ADHD. Either 2,000 plus years of Buddhism is wrong, and they've lied to us, or our current medical system is telling you the truth. You pick. So the core of this is concentration meditation. Every single highlighted golden header is a study. And a couple of years ago, I got crazy and I read each of these studies. I'll try to go through this quick. Actually, just screenshot this, because if I try to break this down, it would take like an hour and a half. Just know that all of these are measurable improvements in either our cognition, our emotional well-being, or our physiology as a result of learning how to meditate. So if you haven't screenshot this and just, the next time you want to meditate and you just can't really get the motivation, take a moment to read these. If a pharmaceutical company could get a pill that could do one of these, 38 things, it would be $100 million business. And if they could make a pill that could do two of those things, it'd be $1 billion business. And meditation does 40 plus. So again, it reduces blood pressure, it reduces aging, it improves your immune function, it decreases insomnia in veterans, it reduces inflammation, it reduces the perception of pain, it improves attention, it improves compassion, it decreases the felt sense of a self, it improves your meta-awareness, it improves working memory, blah, blah, it's the fucking best. So the best book I've been able to find for Westerners to teach them how to do concentration meditation well is called The Mind Illuminated. So screenshot that if you want. The best app that I have found is the Waking Up app by Sam Harris. But let's be real. This is not news to anybody here, and you don't meditate, and you probably won't start after this. So let's get to something that could be a little bit more practical. This is what I've been able to come up with. Long story short, there is a way to use technology to get most of the positive effects of meditation without having to meditate. And don't misunderstand me. You should be meditating, but I'm just trying to be real. I've been talking about this for 10 plus years to people. No one I know consistently meditates. So I've created this whole system to try to get people as close to that holy grail as I can for people in the West. So this is what we're going to break down today. This is what I'm calling a Dharma flower. You have a Dharma. Your Dharma is your calling. The first thing that we have to learn how to do when it comes to using computers and phones is we have to learn how to sweep the pollen off of us. And I'm going to break this down later in this call. But just know that there is a way to use your computer where once you learn how to use it this way, you stop trying to use your brain as an office. You stop trying to remember all of your fucking open loops with your brain, because your brain did not evolve to think like that, and it makes us sick and stressed out and stupid. So we're gonna learn how to change that. That's the first pedal, pollen sweeping. And you don't need to write this stuff down because I'm gonna go into this more deeply, but if you want to, you can. The second pedal, honeycombing. So bees, they go onto a flower that they're attracted to and they rub all up in it because they're trying to get the nectar and they get pollen stuck on them. When they go back to their hive, they rub the pollen off of themselves into honeycombs. And honeycombs are like drawers. They're like incubators. And they put the pollen into these different incubators. So I'm going to teach you guys how to organize your folders in your computer and your phone so you can find what you want to find when you want to find it. This is the part that I think people hate the most, but if you actually get this part down, it will change your life. Number 3, bee bread. Bee bread is what bees make for themselves to eat. And the honey is produced, for when things go into wintertime. But I'm going to teach you guys how to eat bee bread. 4, I'm going to teach you guys how to build a hive. To build a hive in the Shimmer is one of the most important things that I think adults in 2024 can learn how to do. Because once you build a hive, you now have a vehicle to give honey to other people. The truth is, this whole thing I'm teaching you guys, this is me trying to give you guys honey. And the last petal is, once you have these first 5 rolling, just go live your life and help the world. Because then it'll start to happen effortlessly. So the new gold. This is basically the step-by-step system that I'm going to try to teach you guys in the time that we have. This call could be 4 hours. But the thing that I want to really emphasize here is each of us has a calling to become who we could be. There is a way to learn how to use the shimmer where you basically keep track of your own growth and you turn it into Dharma artifacts that you put out into the shimmer. Those Dharma artifacts help other people wake up. You will eventually grow up to the point where you start to sell your best Dharma artifacts. And everybody on this call can get to a point in their life where they buy healthy food and they pay rent on their dream house by helping other people in the shimmer. That's possible. That's available to everybody here, period. And that's the new gold, is to basically learn how to play the game of economics where the money that you make is directly in response to you helping people. You actually helping people with your Dharma. That's possible. And I'm living proof of that. So the last part of this new hope story is to play the God game. So God for me represents the good, the true, and the beautiful. 2, that 0 represents the evolutionary infinite nature of life. And the D represents the dream of the future. So be a part of the good, the true, and the beautiful that is playing the evolutionary game, that is trying to dream a beautiful future. This is a cool picture that I found to represent that. All right, now let's plant a Dharma flower in the shimmer. This is going to be a little bit technical, but it has to be in order for me to, teach you guys how to do this. So here we go. I'll try to make this as digestible as possible. So this is the Dharma shimmer flower. The sacred center is your personal calling. Who are you in the privacy of your own heart, and who is the person that you know only you can become? The invisible petal, and I'll break this down soon, are your portals into the shimmer. We got to learn how to notice our portals. The first petal is pollen sweeping. I'll teach you guys how to do that. The second petal is honeycombs, is how to create the proper organization in the shimmer. Your third petal is learn how to eat your bee bread. Basically learn how to do the things that you need to do to help you grow. Number 4, learn how to build a hive in the shimmer. I was talking about King Arthur, and the difference between a man and a king is that a king doesn't look away. Well, really, I'm trying to teach you guys how to be queens. I'm trying to teach you guys how to connect to the queen in you. And a queen builds a hive. A queen is responsible for making something that produces a whole army of bees that pollinate entire fields of fruits and vegetables, really fruits. So anyways, 5th petal, give honey, help people. And 5 or 6, dance, baby. And I spelled it baby, get it? Like B-E-E, okay. So the invisible petal, these are your portals. Here are mine. I have my phone, my laptop, and my desktop. The number 1, the first step of learning how to master the shimmer is you have to notice your portals. You have to name your portals. You have to tame your portals, and then you have to learn how to train with them. So here's what that looks like. First, and I'm going to send all of this in an email that will go out tomorrow, but I have created a survey that will break down how bad is your injury from the shimmer. So first one is take this survey. And here's an example. It'll help break down the 4 main components of cognition, which are mindlessness, reactivity, multitasking, and rumination. This survey will give you a sense of where you're at. Number 2, learn how to name these, which is really just learning how to track them. I'm going to send this article in the email, but I have an article that breaks down how to begin to track your addiction to checking your phone. For most of us, it's our phone that is really fucking up our entire life. But for some people, it could be their desktop or their laptop. But this article will teach you how to do that. The third one is to tame them. This article, which is Reclaim Your Phone, is if you don't take anything away from this class today, but you at least reclaim your phone and you change the default settings on your phone where you don't get random push notifications from fucking Reddit or Google or Instagram. If you haven't changed your phone and you do this, it will dramatically improve the quality of your cognition. All right, 4, train with them. I'll send you a link to a free course that I have made that goes, it's like if I tried to teach that free course on this call, it would take 4 or 5 hours, but I have it. I'll send you the link. Go train. So the invisible pedal, your portals. Number 1, take the Shimmer assessment. 2, track your Shimmer addiction. 3, reclaim your portals. And 4, practice with them. And I'll send those links in the email tomorrow. All right, the next pedal, pollen sweeping. Drop in the chat if you have heard of the phrase open loops. I'm going to actually open the chat and see how many people have heard of open loops. All right, we got yes, yes, yes. Wow. All right. Cool. All right, there's a couple of people who haven't. Okay, so the way our brains work is that whenever we interact with anything, where we consciously or subconsciously feel like we want to do something about that thing, we generate an open loop in our mind. And you can think of it like you're opening a tab on your web browser for the day. It's like the moment you wake up, you start to see things that then open up tabs in your brain. The average person has between 300 and 400 open loops, which are things that they're trying to consciously or unconsciously track that they have to do. For example, do you have to get cat food today? Every time you open the fridge, do you have a thought of, damn, I really need to change the way that I eat, or I need to throw that away, or damn, the milk's expired. If you go into your car, is your registration expired? Do you have to get a car? Just all throughout your life, there are just these dozens and dozens and hundreds of open loops. Your brain did not evolve to keep track of more than a couple of open loops. And we have the same brain. We have fundamentally the same hardware that our ancient ancestors had 100,000 years ago. Our ancient ancestors, their physical environment would prompt them with what they needed to remember. So if they needed to hunt, there was a place where they lived, where they would go see their bow, or they would see the spear or whatever, and that would remind them. The big reason why we have rituals and why we have sacred items is because they represent things to help us remember. Modern people, our brains are just obese. Now, the thing that's super cool about open loops is that who here has heard of the term the Zeigarnik effect? It's a German word. I'm going to look at the chat and see. And if you don't know, type no. But if you do know, type yes. I just want to actually see. Okay, cool. So the Zeigarnik effect is basically a very astute observational woman was able to notice that If she writes down her open loops, her brain instantly stops trying to track them. Even if you don't complete the open loop, if you write it down on a piece of paper that you trust, that your brain trusts you'll go back to, your brain will stop trying to track it. This might not sound like a big deal, but this is revolutionary. If you develop the practice of writing down your open loops and you teach your brain that it can trust your external system of remembering, your brain will eventually stop trying to remember all these things. And so when I grew up, I only ate poison for like 20 years. I didn't know how to eat healthy. And I remember in college when I finally stopped eating like 150 grams of sugar first thing in the morning. And I started to, have like bulletproof coffee. After about like 2 weeks, I entered into a space of how good it felt in my body that I couldn't have comprehended before having changed my diet. And now that I've tasted that quality of health, it's hard for me to consistently eat bad because I can feel how much it fucks me up. This is the same thing with your mind. I remember the moment, and I had to try to do this multiple times until it finally clicked. But I remember where I was, I remember the time of day, I remember what room I was in when it clicked for the first time. And I think I was like 25. And, it took me multiple hours to write down all of my open loops, and it was like 250 or something. But I remember for the rest of the day, I had like a mini micro samadhi. Like my mind was just effortlessly clear. It's incredible. And now, 8 years later, if I have something that I want to remember, I just write it down into my computer. The good news is that I don't forget anything, almost ever. The bad news is I might not text you back for 6 weeks, but I'll text you back. So there's definitely pros and cons here. It's not perfect, but the reason I'm able to be as creative and have the output that I do, it's because I've learned how to do this. So it's only 3 steps. Really, it's 2 steps and then one supercharged practice. So the first step is you practice writing down all of your open loops. For the average person, this will probably take a weekend. It'll take like 4 hours each day. Step 2 is you process your open loops. And I'll give you exactly the resource that will teach you how to do this. But the big takeaway is that when you write down your open loops, you're not doing anything else. And once you're done with your list, the first thing to do is you start to go through it. And if it takes less than 2 minutes to do, you do it right then. And most people who learn this system say that the 2-minute rule is the most important thing that they took away from it, and it's changed their life. I'm about to show you what book to read to learn how to do this. And do not let the goofiness of the cover of this book trick you, because it is one of the dorkiest covers of one of the most important books that I've ever read, and it's hilarious. Here it is. This is the book. Do not let this dude's goofy outfit and, like trying to be a casual businessman trick you. This is David Allen. He is a mystic. Listen to his podcast with Tim Ferriss, and you'll get a sense that this dude is legitimately like a spiritual teacher who pretends to teach CEOs how to not feel overwhelmed. This is one of the most important books that you could possibly integrate into your life. It's not easy, it's technical, and you're going to have to work to do it. But if you learn what this book teaches, you will have mastered the first pedal. All right, number 2, honeycombs. So there are 5 fundamental types of honeycombs that if you learn how to use, they apply to everything that is on your computer and your phone. And it looks like this. You have an inbox, which is where you put any new open loops. Projects are things that take more than 2 minutes that you are wanting to complete that have a endpoint. So an example of a project is for me to teach this class today. The third is areas. Areas are parts of your life that don't have a completion, but that you want to maintain a standard of excellence in. So an example for me, finances, health, being a good partner. These are things that I want to be good at, but they don't have a completion date. Resources is where you put anything that you want to get access to that could help you with anything in regards to your areas or your projects. So an example of resources is that if I'm on Instagram and I see a cool recipe for a healthy meal that I want to try, I will send that Instagram story or whatever to my physical inbox, and then I'll save it and I'll put it into my resources. The last one is archives. And archives is where you put everything you've ever recorded that doesn't currently help you with your current areas or projects. So this next book is the book that will teach you how to do this. This book is called the PARA method, P-A-R-A, for projects, areas, resources, and archives. And it's written by his name is Tiago Forte, or yeah, I think that's how you say his last name. He is one of the sweetest humans I've ever met. He is the geek's geek. And basically what he did is he took everything that this dork taught, and I mean dork in the best possible way, because I'm a dork, and he remixed it to specifically apply to using it on your computer or your phone. So it's basically a distillation, because this dude wrote his book before the Shimmer really took off. This guy is basically David Allen's like protege, like spiritual apprentice. And he has basically distilled it and has made it easier for people to do it in the modern age. This is the book. If you master this, you will have mastered the second pedal. I really want to emphasize, if you guys get these 2 first pedals down, people will think that you're a superhero and you'll feel like a superhero. All right, the next one, Be Bread. Honestly, this is the one that I have seen people have picked up the most quick and are just obsessed with. So the first one, once you have a place of keeping track of all of your open loops, the next step is you have to learn how to get shit done. You have to learn how to do things effectively and well. The first superpower is to learn how to do Dharma sprints. And this is essentially, you pick the one thing that you're going to do for the next hour and a half, and you set a timer, and then you only do that one thing, or you just sit there. If you practice how to do this, it will change your life. The average person doesn't go 90 minutes without task switching. The average person has a broken brain. But you can start to practice healing your attentional system through these sprints. The image that I created, and this is what I do every day. I identify what are the 3 most important things for me to get done today, that if I got these things done, it'll be a good day. But you have to prioritize them. So what I mean is you have to pick the number 1 most important thing. And then you pick the next thing. And then you pick the third thing. And then I do sprints throughout the day to accomplish these 3 things. And then at the end of the day, I basically do a little micro ritual where I tell myself I'm done with the Shimmer for today. So I use the Shimmer to process my open loops, to do the things in my life that are important to me. And then at the end of the day, I'm done. I don't fuck around with my phone. Like after about 8 p.m., maybe once a week, someone will get a text message from me after 8 p.m. But most of the time, you aren't going to hear from me. And if you try to call me, I'm not going to answer. And I only use my phone to listen to something on Audible or whatever. Like one of the things to really feel into is if you are unconsciously on your phone in bed, you are just wrecking havoc on your brain and it's fucking up your capacity to sleep. And the truth is, almost everyone on here probably does this, and it's okay. But just know that if you stopped doing it, you're going, in like a week, you're going to feel so much clearer and healthier and happier. And it's like, if you can get this practice down of picking the 3 most important things to do the next day. So you would do this at night, ideally, but I often will do it first thing in the morning. And then you just do sprints. So my average day looks like I wake up, I do my whole morning routine, and then I sit down at my computer and I already have on a piece of paper or on my actual computer the first thing I'm going to work on. And I set a timer for like 2 hours. And for those 2 hours, I'm only doing that one thing. And I get a lot of shit done, you know? So if you want a deeper dive on how to do this, check out my podcast episode that's called Dharma Sprints and Death Cookies. Number 4, once you get into the practice of you have mastered writing down your open loops, and so you have a clear creative mind most of the time, and you've mastered the capacity of actually doing the shit that you say you're going to do, you now have an opportunity. Do you want to build something beautiful in the Shimmer that can help people? The first 3 petals I just taught you, I think of that as my inner cathedral. Those are the things that I've created for myself to try to make myself more aligned with my calling. Because one of the things to recognize is it's really hard to notice your dharma if you have 400 open loops. But if you have trained your mind to not track your open loops, you can notice your whisper more. You can notice your calling. You can notice synchronicities. You can notice opportunities. And this is really like, I think of my computer as a cathedral. And I'm trying to create an inner cathedral that reminds me of my religion, which is my calling. And then my outer cathedral is what I've created for other people to come to help them remember theirs. So my inner cathedral is everything that I just taught you. And then the key is to use this system of keeping track of your open loops and actually getting things done to begin to express yourself. So the first step is you capture your open loops. The step 2 is you organize these open loops into some type of system that you trust. 3 is you distill the things that you use. And this will happen organically if you commit to the 4th step. And the 4th step is to express. It's to make shit. So it could be that you write emails at your company, or you create things at the job that you work at, or you make cool things for your kids because you're a mom, and you create you create a whole new system for how you guys choose what you guys eat. And it's a creative thing. Like whatever is your creative output, if you commit to a creative output that makes this whole system work. I want to be super clear here. If you don't have a practice of creating, your system is broken. It doesn't work unless you create from it. So this is what my inner cathedral looks like. I use a program called Notion, but it doesn't matter what program you use. It basically is any program where you can keep notes. will be your inner cathedral if you learn how to do it. So as you can see, I have my inbox, I have my projects, I have my areas, and I have my resources, and then I have a bunch of custom shit that I've made for myself. My creative practice that has made my whole life possible is that I have been writing a newsletter almost every week for like 8 years. This consistent commitment to expression is what has made this whole system work for me. So the thing to take away for everybody here is pick some consistent creative practice to bow your life to, and you will start to effortlessly produce what wants to come through you. So here's what my outer cathedral looks like. It's my website. It's my podcast, it's my courses, it's the Dharma Artist Collective, it's the class I teach. All of that shit is my outer cathedral. So the fifth one is give honey. So one of the things that is super important to understand about what I call Dharma artifacts, and so a Dharma artifact is when you put something into the shimmer that genuinely helps people. You only have to do it once, and it can help people forever. It has compounding helpfulness. And what that means is, for example, I spent 3 months, 3 years ago, writing an article called What is Trauma? And What is Trauma is an article that I still get emails from people saying that it changed their life. I haven't done anything about it in 3 years, and it's still helping people. I created a course called Make Your Myth, which is a journaling course that over 1,000 people have taken, and I still get emails once every 2 weeks probably, where someone says it changed their life. I haven't thought about that since, but when I worked on it, it was the most important thing. And once I made it and I put it out there, it now lives there. And it's like a flower, and it's just constantly, anyone who comes to it, it can help them. I wrote a book and I put it online for free. And I gave people the chance to give a donation if they wanted to. I've been super surprised, but it's made thousands of dollars, and I never even made it to make money, but I still get emails from people, probably about once a month, saying that it changed their life. That's an example of creating in the shimmer. You only have to do it excellently once. And then if you put it out there, it can just continue to help people. And so if you get those 5 practices down, you're going to eventually find your place in a situation that I'm currently in. I grew up poor. I did not expect to be in the position that I'm at now, but I'm in the position where I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. The money I make is enough where I don't have to worry about money, and all of it comes directly from helping people. And it's actually, like, I have people tell me that, it changes their life, and it's the best feeling. And this is available to everybody here. Now, the caveat, I worked on this for 10 years. You will have to as well. Maybe you'll do it in 5, but this is not like learn how to drop ship on Amazon in 21 days and you'll make 10K a month. That's not what I'm offering here. I'm offering a way to live the rest of your life where you don't ever want to retire, you love what you do, and how you make money is from directly helping people heal and grow. Okay, so let's distill this down. There are 3 quests for everybody here. The first quest is to free your mind. Quest 2 is to plant at least 1 Dharma flower in the shimmer. And quest 3, for those who choose to accept it, is to learn how to build a garden in the shimmer. So a flower becomes a garden when you bring in a beehive. So first one, free your mind. Again, I know he looks like a fucking goofy goober, and most of you who try to read the book will probably struggle. but just trust me, it's worth it. This is the path. This is the path. I'm trying to tell you. This is a picture from my desk, I think probably about 8 years ago. As you can see, I started to take notes. This is one of my first iterations of this system. You can see all these motherfucking note cards around here. As you can see, I had finally learned how to have a healthy breakfast, and my version of a healthy breakfast was a fucking full thing of coffee with probably 500 calories of butter. And then this was the job I worked at. I worked at a call center for an insurance company, and I fucking hated it. But this whole thing kept me happy and alive. So learn how to create an external system to keep track of your open loops. 2, plant a flower in the shimmer. So the reason I shared this book is because the focus of Tiago Forte's entire teachings is that we create this system to help us create things for other people. That's the whole point. It's not so you can be a librarian who just sits in the dark and is like, look at all the notes I have. No, it's you create a system so that you can efficiently create things for other people, to help other people. So one of my invitations for you guys is write a trip report about one of the hardest things you've ever gone through. This is essentially what my podcast is either interview other people or I'm writing and sharing a trip report about something hard that I've gone through. The invitation here is that each person here has had a moment in their life where they have been on the bathroom floor weeping. And you survived that moment and you're here. If you have the courage to write that story and to share that story, you will change someone's life. You might even save someone from ending their life. So flowers could look like a website. Flowers could look like a podcast. The third one is to create a garden. So this past year, I created the Dharma Artist Collective. And this is a community for other people to basically learn how to focus. The reason it's a garden and not a flower is that I don't have to tend to it. It's started to have its own feedback loop on itself where the people are helping each other and I can just kind of step away. And it's like, without getting too deep into the technicals, because of the rise of artificial intelligence and the fact that most of the content online is going to be AI generated in the next year, communities where people can actually connect with each other is going to be very likely the new wave of how people interact online. And that each of us here, if you consistently start to put flowers in the shimmer, you will have the opportunity to create a garden. And the garden can feed you. Like, I'm totally blown away by the success of the Dharma Artist Collective so far. I can walk away from my job if I want to. And it's a wild thing to feel, you know? Okay, so here's the map at a glance. Take a screenshot if you want. I spent so long trying to get this design to look this way. You know, I probably took over half an hour. So if you want to take a screenshot of that, do that. And you can take a screenshot of this. Step 1, master your portals. Step 2, learn how to get your open loops out of your motherfucking head. 3, learn how to organize them in this system. 4, learn how to get shit done. Learn how to do sprints. Learn how to prioritize what you have to do. And then learn how to shut it down at the end of the day. Step 5, now that you have an inner cathedral, try to create an outer cathedral. The key code is you have to commit to an act of expression. This whole thing won't work if you don't commit to expressing. But if you commit to expressing, you'll eventually be producing honey and you will help people. So screenshot that if you haven't. Just sit here for a moment. How are we doing on time? I really tried to do that as fast as I could and I still don't feel like. Anyways. Okay, so this is now, I'm going to now talk to the people on this call who are the 24-year-old version of me. I needed to be persuaded. I needed to be pitched to. For the people who know that they can't afford my course, ignore this part, and I'm going to still give you guys free shit afterwards. But for the people who are on the fence, who need to be persuaded, I'm going to try to fucking persuade you because I needed to be persuaded. So this is officially a call to come take my class. Number one, you can afford it. So this is something like, just don't lie to yourself. If the IRS raised taxes today and said that you had to pay $4,000 by the end of the year or you would go to jail, no one here would go to jail. So it's not true that you can't afford it. It's just probably true that I haven't convinced you that it's worth it. And that's fine, but just don't lie to yourself. Two, the fact that you're on this call, and if you feel some nervousness in your gut as I start to talk about this, that's a sign. You could choose to be brave. Three, anyone who commits and joins the summit plus the online version of this class before Monday at midnight, you will get $500 off of the $4,000. So it'll be $3,500. Four, I'm super excited about this. I had this idea last night. I'm going to create a special container in this next class for people who are parents, for people who are teachers of minors, and people who are caretakers of kids. And we're going to basically workshop for the duration of the course, how do we help kids? Because the truth is, I don't have kids. So I'm not competent to talk on this point. But I have had enough people ask me, Eric, I love everything that you're talking about, but how do we help the kids? And I'm tired of saying that I don't know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a space where the parents can come, and I'm going to basically listen to you guys. And we're going to work together to create something that will be for kids. And this is like, just to be frank, I don't let people buy my time for anything. And so this is worth thousands of dollars because I'm going to do like a 2-hour call with you guys like every week. 5, anyone who joins before Monday, I will give you a year-long scholarship to DAC, and that's worth $1,200. I'm serious. So just to go over that again, you can't afford it. We have payment plans for people who want to space it out. We use Shop Pay, and Shop Pay allows you to, based off of your credit score, you can get 12 monthly installments to pay for it. And I think it's like it's less than $20 a day or something. So also, this is the last time that we will be doing a group summit. So if you've ever wanted to be a part of Fit for Service, or if you're an alumni and you want to get it one more time, this is the last time. So lastly, this is the moment for true adults to wake up, turn pro, and help out. And so this is the information for the online version. It's only $1,500. You can take a screenshot. I think there's like 20 spots left for the online only. You can screenshot this. This is for the course plus the summit. And we have a whole fucking wall of testimonials about people who say that this was the best choice they ever made. Lastly, for everybody here who knows that they're not supposed to be in this course because either they can't afford it or they, think that I'm a piece of shit because I just tried to sell something, I have a gift for you. So everyone here will get an email tomorrow with a coupon to get both of my online courses for free. So my Make Your Myth course and the Dharma Journal, over 1,000 people have taken the Make Your Myth, and it's changed a lot of lives. I will send out a coupon tomorrow that will be good for 24 hours that you guys can get both of those courses for free for listening to me pitch. Because I remember what I was like when I was 21 and I couldn't stand it. So if you know that you're supposed to be in this class, I would love to have you. It's going to be fucking awesome. Go to fitforservice.com, go to Mentally Fit, and join. And just to remind you guys, if you guys commit and get the summit plus the in-person class, you will get $500 off. You will be a part of the special parent, teacher, and caregiver group if you want to be. And I'll give you a year-long scholarship to DAC, which is $1,200. So you have Monday at 11:59 as your deadline. So I hope that I've convinced the people who are meant to be convinced. And the email tomorrow is going to have a lot of links because I'm going to actually keep my word and tell you guys exactly the steps to do. But if I had tried to teach that directly on this call would have been 5 hours long and most of you would have left. So with that said, let's get to questions. You can drop your questions. Actually, just raise your actual Zoom hand if you have questions and we will get it going. All right, so just to be clear, the 2K next to the group thing, that's what it's worth. It's no extra money. So if you join, you just get to be a part of that thing. Okay, John.
Yo, thank you. Every time I hear you say this, your skill gets better and better at it. So just, yeah, way to do it. So I'm really interested in basically taking the course that you just outlined, right? This the honeycomb, the portals, the actual building a cathedral. Is that what this course is? You know, like I'm in the DAC, I listen to you, I know the philosophy, but I'm really interested and almost know that I need it hammered into me step by step, hand holding wise, that exact
Yep.
course. So is that what you're doing?
What I taught today is 1/3 of the course. It's what we learn in the third part. So there's 2 parts before this. The first part is I basically really teach a lot about what your Dharma is and how to connect to it. Part 2 is I teach people dream work and parts work, because long story short, if you don't learn how to do dream works and parts work, all of your bullshit is going to come out in what you try to make, and you're probably not going to be helpful. You're just probably going to put out more anxiety and fear. And so I teach those 2 things. And then once I teach those 2 things, we finally get to the technical shit, because people start to freak out when I, like, it, my experience is people love the idea of trying to learn this thing. And whenever I actually start to teach people how to learn it, people freak out. And it's because it's hard. It's like you have to retrain how you cognate, and so it will be taught. It'll be taught in part 3. There's 2 more parts. The course is dense, but I give you the links and the citations and all that stuff. And yeah, so
Right. Thank you.
yeah. Joanna,
Eric, hi. This is
hello.
amazing. Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Would you be able to go back to the screen that shows the map? I have a question about it this
Yeah.
is amazing. Yeah, so where on the map would we want to dial into the why? Like, how do you sort of see that in the process? And forgive me if that's a really obvious question.
Yeah.
This is so great.
All right. So ask your question again, please.
Yeah, so where on the map would we be dialing into the why? Like really defining why we're doing the things that we're doing?
So I guess what I was hoping to convey on the call is that if you grok the horror, you would feel the call to try it. Like if you imagine what is happening in the Shimmer, it's a eco world. It's like a new world. And right now that world is fucking sick. And almost no one who creates in it is creating in it for the sake of trying to help the people who are caught in it. And that the whole first part of the course is people connecting to their why, but I didn't get into that on this call because, I can only do so much in an hour and a half. But my personal why is one, I think we're all sick, and that Carl Jung believed that the creme de la creme of how to heal a sick psyche is to make art. So I'm doing this so that I can heal. But two, we need to get competent at being in the shimmer so that we can help rescue our children. There's an entire generation of children who are being shredded by this thing. And it's because there's not enough compassionate adults who are willing to fucking learn how to be in it and to my dream is to teach enough people how to do this, to get enough people to care so that we can get teams together that can make apps, games, stories, and books and things like that that can get to children. Because the thing is, I don't know how many people have gone down the really dark rabbit hole of going to the YouTube channels that are made for children, but that the people who make the content, we don't know who they are. And if you watch the videos, it is deeply disturbing to me how weird and disjointed these things are, but that they're designed to appeal to 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds. And the thing is, there's tens of millions of children who, without placing judgment on their parents give them their phone or their iPad or their computer because the kid has become addicted to it and will freak out if they don't have it. And there is just a whole thing that we don't have time to talk about why I think to be a true adult and to really grok what the fuck is going on, I think regardless of what we want to do, I think we're morally responsible to learn how to be competent enough to help them.
Yeah, thank you so much. That tracks. And I just want to say I've never seen such a comprehensive offering in terms of what's happening right now and what you've created. It really feels like this is the leading edge, this community that you're building and everything. So I'm just blown away by the spirit of generosity and all that. So thank you so much for hosting this and creating this space.
Beautiful. Thank you. And to all the people who raised their hand and then put their hands down, put your hands back up. If you take classes with me, you'll learn that I'm like this. It's like, this is a place to be brave and to, be seen and to be heard. All right, Tabitha.
Hey, hi, Eric. This has been so cool. Thank you very much. I have been working to follow your Mentally Fit Games scholarship program, and I
Cool.
just had a question if you're okay talking about it here. I wanted to
Absolutely
know
not.
when, absolutely not.
I'm just joking.
I wanted to know when during the Sun Wheel module would be the best time to start the Focused 45.
I would say once you get to the end of the sun wheel is when to
Okay,
start that.
perfect. Thank you.
Great question. And yeah, just for everybody here, anyone who takes any of my classes, you're still eligible to play the MF game and to get the last class for free. You can just do both. Shandy.
I raised my hand just to make a statement. Oh no, not Ah! Dude, thank you. I don't know, the last 3 weeks, whatever, but what you're doing is powerful, and just thank you. And your commitment to do the kid thing, I was literally sitting here earlier because you had recommended the kid book before about attention, and it's I don't know what to do about my kids. I don't want them to go get eaten up by the world and just fucking get spit out. And it's just fucking great.
I really appreciate that. And yeah, I'm really excited for this group for the parents because I really want to basically try to facilitate a circle where parents can teach me, and then I could potentially make something for parents to do with kids. And yeah, it just feels like every time I talk about this, I get very sincere people asking me, what can we do for kids? And I'm tired of saying I don't know. So I'm really excited for what that will be.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Ronald.
So I took Mentally Fit this last trimester, and I feel like people in this call are probably still digesting everything he said, but I want to offer. I too knew that there were serious problems with our society, but I couldn't figure them out by myself. The way that I felt about it was that nobody was actually being the adults in the room that we needed. Not because they're evil or incompetent or members of the Illuminati, but because they were broken fundamentally. The internet has sped up that process of grinding everything beautiful out of people and turning them into zombies that would be ideal for jobs that don't exist anymore. If we don't, and if we don't stop that process from happening in a couple of generations, we're not going to be able to solve the very real and complicated problems our society is facing. There'll be nobody qualified. There'll be no savior, no Superman to come help us figure this shit out. We'll all be too traumatized, too reactive, too scatterbrained, and too unhealthy to be the people we need to be. And I know that scares all of you. You want to go hide in the woods somewhere, or maybe just go back to the comfort of entertainment, but you can't. You can be mad about that, but if you're hearing my voice, you have to be a part of the solution. I have tried for years to be a part of the solution, and this class gave me more tools and more clarity to be a part of the solution than like 5 to 10 years of personal research. And it was only a couple of months. The thing that you're going to discover is that if you can heal yourself and then master the internet and master all of the crazy technology attached to it, you can become as wise and smart as a person with a PhD on your own time and as powerful and effective as a team of like 30 human beings all at once. That sounds ridiculous, but it is the truth.
Yeah.
And it's insane to me because I'm not quite fully alchemized in that yet, but I've done more projects for clients and still had time to make art for myself in the last like 2 months than I did in the prior 8 to 9 months. And it blows my fucking mind. Like, I don't have proper words for how much more potent, mature, and powerful I feel after taking this class. So if you're on the fence at all, please, for the love of God, give it a shot. Like, really, really sincerely, because we need you. We really need you.
I fucking love that. And I swear on the soul of my children, I did not plant him to say that. That's incredible. And
Yeah, no.
yeah, and the quote that comes to mind is the adults aren't coming. We have to become them. We are not going to be rescued. We have to become the adults. Gina.
Hi, yeah, just a quick one. Just wanted to say thank you so much. You're so amazing, Eric. And
Sorry about that.
yeah, no worries.
Almost called me.
Yeah, just a really huge thank you. And just to second what Ronald said, like pretty much everyone I spoke to at Fit for Service could not have recommended your course enough and could not have raved about you and just said how incredible you are. And just I really felt that as one of the key coaches on the summit. And yeah, so yeah, thank you so much. So grateful. And this is so generous of you to have done this for us and to have taken a couple of hours out of your Saturday. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm grateful that my existential fear has turned into things that have been helpful for other people. So it feels good to hear. Is it Colette? Did I say that right?
Yes, it is Colette. Thank you. I just returned from the amazing summit in Sedona. Was really grateful that I was introduced to your work, and I have in the last couple weeks done this deep dive into the Shimmer based on the work that you've done. And One, I have been meditating for about 10 years now, thousands of hours of
Cool.
meditation. I still have the monkey mind, but I remember my first teacher saying, just sit your ass down on that mat every fucking day. Just do it. And so I do, and I have. It's just a habit.
That's awesome.
Now, as a coach and understanding, one of the things that I encourage every single one of my clients to do is to have a time in the morning that they set aside, whether it be 15 minutes, a half hour, or an hour, and kind of based on your work. What other one really useful piece of information would you offer me to be able to siphon that into my clients?
So I'm not ready to talk about it in depth, but do it in the sunlight without glasses. I am at the beginning of an experiment that I'm not ready to talk about, but Kyle Kingsbury has sufficiently shamed me about my skin tone for long enough where I'm finally getting like 2 hours of sunlight every day. There is magical shit happening. I don't know if it's placebo. I don't know, but what I now do is I meditate outside in the morning without my glasses on. And man, yeah, so
Right
that's what
on. I have been in the sun every day since Sedona too. There was something about, and I'm like looking at the sun and like, okay, I'm just doing what I trust that sometimes we don't necessarily need all the scientific data to back what like intuitively feels right to us. So okay, I'm gonna add the sunlight into that.
and to be worth it, I had to read 2 scientific books to get myself to start to do the whole sun thing, but I read the books and now I'm fucking convinced. So
Right on. Well, I'm looking forward to taking your course. I have made the commitment, so I really appreciate the $500 off. So, will there be
beautiful.
a link in the email that you send us tomorrow that will include that coupon?
Oh yeah, I should drop that in here right now. Um, I want to drop that in here right now. So Claire made it, and I love the name that they chose for it. Makes me very happy because I'm big on goofy names.
I dropped it in there for you, Eric.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Yeah, and Claire, I would love to have you in the class too, you know? Well, you get it for free, so whatever. Okay,
Well, it's a
so
competition between you and my kids, so it might be perfect timing for the parent portion. Love you.
exactly. All right, so one of the things I do, one of the things I've learned from hosting calls is the people who have to be called out to ask questions tend to ask the best questions. So there's 80 people on this call. Only a couple of questions have been asked. I don't fucking believe you guys. I don't believe you that you don't have questions. So I'm going to make space for 5 more questions. You have to raise your hand. If you've listened to me talk for an hour and a half and you don't have a question, I either fucking nailed it or I have failed or you're just being afraid. So it's probably the third one, or maybe I just fucking ruined it. But all right. So the first one is Corbin for everybody else. If you don't know how to raise your Zoom hand, just go to ChatGPT quick. And if you still can't figure it out, then raise your human hand and I'll call on you. But I'm going to do 5 more. And I'll sit here until everybody leaves if we don't, do 5 more questions. All right, Corbin.
What's happening, y'all? Love your work, Eric. Thanks so much for what you're doing, man. It feels really powerful and important now more than ever. And thanks to your call out in terms of asking the question. I can feel my voice getting a little shaky.
I love it.
Yeah. And I don't even really know how to fully articulate it yet, but it feels as if, at least for me personally, there's a certain maturation process going on, like an inner maturation process around discipline and managing my time, because probably like many of the people here, I'm at least in connection enough with my daemon to hear it and to know what it's calling me towards, and managing my time, my energy, and my attention in a way to where I can actually do the things that like I know are like I need to do.
Yeah.
And so from a psychological Jungian, just whatever perspective you want, what would you say because I know your time, attention, and focus and discipline is on a whole other level that I would love to be at, but I'm nowhere close to. And so I'd be curious to know what kind of process you would welcome someone like myself or anyone else to go through that maturation to where I can do the things that I'm being asked to do.
Yeah, so first, I just want to call out that the position that you are in is definitely one of the hardest ones to be at, where you can hear the whisper, but you haven't learned how to sit down and do the thing, because that's where you have like the maximum pressure because you're no longer numb, but you have, so I just want to bless the part that you're at. I sent out an email to everybody the day before where I gave a link to my first webinar I taught. That one is the one to check out that will answer the question you just asked, which is it'll teach you the practice that I've used to get to the place that I'm at now. And it's basically what is called the Dharma practice, but it's to practice doing sprints until you can do 2 or 3 in a day. And then you design those 3 sprints to like feed your soul. And so my current structure is the first sprint of the day. Really, I do 4. And the first one is like, I'm outside, I work out, I ice bath, I do Kundalini. I don't really count that, but I'm not on my phone. I'm not task switching. But then when I come to my computer, the first hour and a half, I'm doing whatever with full attention my soul most wants to do. So that might be, I'm learning about being a druid and what's a druid and blah, blah, blah. Like that has no clear application to any part of my life. It's just it's yummy to me. Then I take a break for 15 minutes. I go get some sun. I, eat or drink something. And then I do like an hour and a half or a 2-hour sprint on what is the most important work thing that I have to get done this week. So today it was this course. It was this class. The third one, so after I do the first 2, I'll tend to work out or go on a walk or take a nap. Naps are cheat codes. Naps are cheat codes. If you learn how to nap, it is a fucking cheat code. I could do a whole class on naps. But my third one is where I spend an hour and a half doing the shit I don't want to do, that I have to do because I'm a human and I have, I fucking have to break down the recycling and take out the trash. I have to clean out the fridge, whatever the fucking thing is. And so I do like 3. And then for the rest of the day, I'm kind of relaxing and just being a person. You will be fucking floored how much that will take care of the things in your life.
Awesome, thank you. And one short follow-up question, is that possible?
So that was the follow-up question, but you can ask the third one. Because you asked if it's possible. So that was question 2. So now you get 3 questions.
Oh.
So
very good, my friend. Do you have any input, thoughts, reflections on managing, like what, as we're talking about, like we hear the daemon, we see the vision, and it's so big and broad and feels so far out there. And I know that meditation is probably the first step, but like any other perspectives in terms of how to create enough safety, being okay with just taking it one piece at a time and trusting that piece by piece will create the big masterpiece that we see that may feel so far out, but really actually isn't.
there's a mythological motif about the invisible bridge. It's in a bunch of myths and a bunch of stories and a bunch of cultures. And the essence of the invisible bridge is it only reveals itself once you step onto it. So the mythological takeaway from that is just try and do each day one thing and then try again. And you can't get the confidence until you've run it on faith a couple of times. So what I have found in my life and what I teach other people is just start by doing the shit that you're afraid to do. And what I found is once I committed to doing things I was afraid to do, I got miracles came back to me. And after like 4, I was like, I'm in. For the rest of my life, I'm in. And so the invisible bridge, you just got to run it on faith until it becomes, you know. So,
Beautiful. Thank you so much for
absolutely.
everything.
Cloudy,
Hey, can you hear me?
I can.
Um, I just want to say thank you really like so much. I appreciate everything that you've given us and all the resources and tools. I've listened to so much of your stuff and I'm really happy that I get to go back and listen to it again doing the mentally fit game. Because I've listened to it and done other things while I'm doing it and I'm like, this is so good. I'm like, I need to write this down. Hold on.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to ask with the mentally fit game, can I do things out of order?
No, if you do them out of order, you'll have someone show up at your house in a black suit and no, of course you can. You can do it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because like there's stuff like the dream work that I want to get into like right away. And there's other stuff that I've kind of picked up from your teachings along the way. But really, you're just such a valuable resource. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm glad you asked for anybody here. Yeah, you guys can do it in whatever order you want. The key though, and I think a lot of people might miss this, but once you commit to it, you have to hit 80% of the days that it takes to complete it. You have to create something and then you have to show me to get the class. So just once you start, commit to creating something.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Scott, I love your beard.
So I started reading Bill Plotkin's and the Soul Initiation.
Yep.
And I'm definitely at the preparation and maybe disillusion, but like eco awakening and leaving the village and all that sounds like, I know it's not running away, but it doesn't seem like it's like a call to service. It's like starting point. So is there like a line to walk with everything you're talking about and that, or is that one thing that go do and then come back?
So most of us, if we haven't had a deep connection with our soul, we're going to have to leave our life to start to make space to connect to what wants to come through. What I would offer, what my perspective is trying to offer, is that if you take good notes while you go explore, and what that means is like, I fucking keep a journal to myself every day and I write the notes of anything that happens that I think is interesting. I write it in my note for the day. It's saved somewhere. When you eventually come back, if you kept notes of your excursions, you have trip reports. And the trip reports, like my entire life's work, the root of it is that I fucking just wrote trip reports. I just did shit. I did weird shit. A lot of it involved drugs. And then I would just tell the truth the best I could when I came back. And it's like the majority of what I've done for the last, 10 years has just been trip reports, just trying to fucking tell the truth of the, ugly and the beautiful. So what I would offer to you is, like, if you have a safe place in your life where you're competent, you will have to start to leave that place. And that can be, through excursions into wild nature. It could be drugs. Plant medicine, blah, blah, blah. It could be retreats, but then to keep notes of your adventures. And then you could eventually share those one day when you're ready to come back.
Thank you.
Cool. Kara, or is it Kara? Kara?
It's Kara. Hey.
Hello.
This is a bit awkward, but I'm
Awesome.
sold on Malibu, definitely going. But I can't decide whether I should do mentally fit, emotionally fit, or the new creatively fit. So from your perspective, what would align
I hear you.
what would align best with you, Caitlin, or Kim?
Cool. So I think the thing to feel into is there's two ways, and this is for everybody here. There's what do you have the most resistance to, or what do you think would help you the most? And so mine will provide maps and tools and like a clear, like, if you just do this, it will work. What Caitlin's class will do is it will teach you how to feel to a depth you haven't felt and express at a capacity that you haven't expressed. And I haven't taken Kim's class yet, but my deep intuition is if you want to just fucking get good at being weird creatively and like really start to like bring out content, I think a way to think about it is if you feel overwhelmed, ironically enough, take my class. If you feel inhibited, take Caitlin's class. And if you feel dry, like you need more inspiration and wetness, take Kim's class.
Cool, thank you.
Cool. I look forward to see who you pick. And how dare you ask me that in front of everybody? That's perfect. Cool. Scott. Oh wait, Scott, you already went. How dare you? Okay, so the next one is I'm going to try to say your name, but I will probably get it wrong, so please be graceful with me. Tavashin? I'm sure that's wrong. It's so wrong he doesn't even know that I'm talking to him.
Sorry, yeah, I don't know why I have that on my thing. It's actually Ian, but that's just a combination of my middle name and my first name, Tavish Ian. So yeah, similar to Corbin, can definitely feel my voice a little shaky here, but really appreciate what you're sending out here. For me, I guess what I'm kind of been struggling with is that kind of similar thing that piggybacking off what Corbin said is like feeling like I do have a lot I want to share, but just like getting to the point of committing to myself and just sticking with that kind of like, yeah, not being able to work with my self-discipline enough. So just wondering how that connects with your course and what have you.
So there's a unique type of creative person who has been connected to their creative inspiration for a long time, but hasn't developed a pattern of creating. And so there's this fucking pressure that the first thing has to be the book.
Massive.
Or has to be the album, has to be the magnum opus. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Process, is great for people who are stuck at that place. And one of the pages of that book is worth the whole book. And it's something like, really it's 2 pages. One is treat your creative projects like you're making a mixtape and you're in high school and you're making a mixtape for a girl that you're in love with or that you want to woo. So it's what's alive right now.
Mm-hmm.
You make the thing to be done with the thing so you can start the next thing. And it's like the people who click into that type of approach to their artistic process, they will be prolific. So an awesome experiment to know about is that there was a photography professor who gave his class 2 options for how to take the class. One option was they had to submit a picture every day, and then from those pictures, the teacher would select the top one, and that's what they would be graded on. And the other way to take the class is you only had to submit 1 photo. You could only submit 1 photo, and you had the whole semester to do it. Something like 80% of the A's in the class came from group A.
Providing a picture every day.
That is one of the most important things. That's one of the most important studies that I'm aware of for creatives. That means that all of the A's that came from the first group took 1 day of effort, as opposed to 3 months of them just fucking mulling over what is the greatest picture. And they got it because they put in the reps. So for me, it started with, I'm just going to write trip reports. I'm not trying to write a book. I don't know what the fuck I'm even going to talk about. My first website is still online. It's called godseesirony.blogspot.com. You guys can go check it out, and it's full of shitty articles. But I love that it's up there because it's like, I love it. No one read that. No one, I think maybe 4 people looked at, and there's hundreds of articles on there. The next thing that I started to do is I started to write a weekly newsletter. Because it was weekly, it was just like a snapshot. I have 3 like partially written books in my Google Drive because I tried to write books and each one had the pressure to be a magnum opus. Once I fucking gave that up, I then started to make like small courses, and now I currently have the class I teach now. So the invitation is pick something that's small, maybe weekly, and just commit to it. And let the first 100 be ignored. But then eventually you'll get to a point where people will be like, you're a genius. How did you do it? And it's like, go look at I have hundreds of shitty articles online. So.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right. No more new questions. These are the last 3 because I can feel that we've broken the momentum and now everyone will start to, and we just don't have time for it. So for the people who rose your hand, proud of you. For the people who didn't, I still love you. There isn't any shame. And maybe you just don't have a question. Lisa.
Hey, so you've been actually kind of answering my question through other people's questions, but to get deeper, so I'm wondering, because what I struggle with is being brave enough to just put my shit out there. And I'm deeply creative, so art, poetry, dance, all of it is very vulnerable stuff for me, but that's like my bread and butter is all the vulnerable stuff. So, but I've always struggled with just like birthing it into the shimmer. And like I'm feeling anxious now just thinking about it. Like it's like, oh.
I love it.
So I'm wondering if you or the course itself has a process to overcome this block, this like,
yeah,
I can't put it out there because there's this like something inside of me telling me like it's not good enough, it's not good enough, like the cringing part of you.
Yeah. So 1, yes. 2, there isn't a solution to this that's like a cheat code, but there is a solution. And the solution, you already know what it is. It's just to do it, and then to do it again, and then to do it again, and then to do it again. So there's something in psychology called exposure therapy, and it's the most effective Western practice that we have for treating people who have really intense fear of something. Now, the asterisk here is I think once we start to learn how to do and use psychedelics more, we will start to, but currently not using psychedelics. The most effective therapy we have for intense fear is called exposure therapy. And it's basically you talk with the person about their fear, and you talk with them about their fear until they can talk about the fear and not be in a flight response. And then once that happens, then you start to slowly expose them to doing the actual thing until they can do it. And that the key of exposure therapy is not that you make the world more safe. It is that you make the person more resilient. And the only way that we become more resilient is by doing the thing. Because the human nervous system is technically anti-fragile. What that means is as we expose ourselves to stress, we grow in response to that stress. If it's acute stress, chronic stress makes you sick. This class will teach you how to at least heal your mind from being chronically stressed. There are other ways to be chronically stressed, but acute stress makes us stronger. One of the things I see in the class, and it's just because my attitude is I constantly, every call, I'm reminding people, if you're afraid to do it, do it. And so by the end of the call or by the end of the class, people, like, it happens every call. Someone will raise their hand, and they'll say, I didn't want to do this, but that's why I'm doing it. And it's like the ethos of the whole class is just, you get to see everybody else in class do it. And by the end, our calls are 4 hours long because nobody's afraid anymore.
Mhm.
And that will bleed over into your creative work.
Okay. So just feel the cringe and do it anyway.
Yeah, and I think what does help is being in a community of other people who are practicing that same muscle. Because like what happened in this most recent class was I was blown away by people started to share things that I wasn't expecting, and it made the transformative pressure of the container even more than what it was the first class. And not because I did anything new, it was just because the people who took it just fucking sent it.
Okay, sweet. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And like the other thing to feel into, guys, is it's like 99% of people are terrified. And so if we can actually be afraid on camera, it can give permission. And most of us don't want to share until we feel like it's perfect, but that actually perpetuates the illusion. You know, like I was nervous before this call. So a cool thing to know is that what we call procrastination, the resistance to doing a thing, we can actually track people's brain states before they have to do something that they've been procrastinating on. All of the physiological pain and fear is in the anticipation of doing the thing. And then the moment they start to do the thing, their brain completely drops in. There's no more pain. And it's this incredible illusion that once you learn the brain science around it, it can just pierce it. And it's like all of the pain and the resistance is in the approach to doing the thing. And then as soon as you do the thing, our brains click in. Because the really interesting thing about anxiety and being excited are the same thing chemically in the brain, but we interpret it as anxiety if we're unclear of how it will play out. But really what it is it's aliveness, y'all. It's aliveness. And so when we're anxious and then we drop into our craft, it tends to produce a flow state. You can't get a flow state if there's not some excitement / anxiousness because there's not enough pressure. So it's on the other side of that veil is really flow state, and you can give honey to other people too. Cool. David.
Hey, so speaking of that, I'm kind of nervous asking this question.
Let's go.
Yeah, so yeah, I noticed that was like my voice was shaking a little bit, but I'm curious. I heard you somewhere um, talk about, I think it was in reference to the course, maybe it was on one of the earlier webinars for it, about it's about, and you touched on it now about like what you've been doing is just doing trips and then writing reports telling the truth. And I'm just curious about the truth telling, like part of the course, because I heard you mention somewhere, I thought that like part of the course is like getting, real about that.
Yep.
And so I'm just curious if you could talk more about that, and also I guess like what um just like give an overview of like the other parts of the course that like you didn't touch on today.
Yeah. So the prerequisite to the whole course is for people to start journaling every day with the intention of just trying to tell themselves something true. So my story is that, and my like spicy take is that if you don't have a practice of telling yourself the truth every day, you're probably lying to yourself. And so for me, I didn't start telling myself the truth until I was 21, I think. No, I think I was 22 or 23. My first long-term relationship had just ended. She was about to move out. The day before she moves out, I have a back spasm. The back spasm is so bad that I can't walk for 5 days. I have to piss. She has to bring me a cup and she watches me piss into a cup. That's how low it got. I then heard a podcast with Tim Ferriss where he talked about this book called The Artist's Way, and I just felt called to buy it. And because of the magic of Amazon, it got to me on the third day of not being able to walk. And the moment I got it, I just felt this, in hindsight, it was the whisper, but I didn't know it then. But I just felt like a spiritual compulsion to read this book like it was the Bible. And the first thing she talks about in that book is to start to do what is called writing the daily pages. So I just started practicing telling myself the truth. Within a month, I realized that I had fallen out of love with my partner for at least a year and a half, and I was too much of a coward to admit it to myself, and I hurt her badly because of how much of a coward I was. 2, I didn't like any of my friends, not because they were bad people, but because I wasn't honest with any of them because I had so much shame. And 3, I figured out that I actually hated my body and that I was afraid of my body, and that just broke my heart. I figured all that shit out in a month of just practicing, trying to tell myself the truth. And it fucking changed my life. And so I offer that to people at the start of the class just as like a baseline. But in the first module, so it's broken up into 3 modules. There's the sun wheel, the moon wheel, and the flame wheel. The sun wheel, the first class, I introduced to you guys a developmental model of how the mind evolves through time. And then I pair it with a writing essay called the Thrice Born Essay, where you basically write your story of each of these developmental stages. And the invitation is tell yourself the truth, because each stage had a trauma. It's true for all of us. And I'm surprised, but a lot of people say that that was the most significant part of the course, is just going through their entire life with this map and just telling themselves the story of who they were at each stage and what the pain / crisis / transformation moment was that took them to the next one. And I think a big part of it is because I lead by example and I share my shit, yeah. We each have really ugly, yucky stuff in our past that if we can admit it to ourselves, we heal. And then if we have the courage to share with other people, it gives them permission to share theirs. And so that'll happen in the first week. But just to break down the overview of the course, the sun wheel, I'm going to teach you guys the stages of development. I'm going to teach you guys what the individuation process is. I'm going to teach you guys how to actually do habit change. And then we're all going to enter into an initiation together where we try to live out our ideal day for the rest of the class. That sets up the moon wheel, because what happens is once you commit to trying to be your best self, you're going to get triggered. You're going to trigger yourself every day. So in the moon wheel, I teach people how to interpret their dreams, really how to have an intimate relationship with your dreams. This changes everything. People say, because I have people do an exit survey after the class is over, 80% of people roughly say that the dream thing is their favorite, and 20% of people say it's their least favorite. And I think that's an interesting insight. But the essence of dreams is if you learn how to understand them, your dreams will call out your blind spots. Your dreams are never self-congratulatory. And I teach how to do this, and it's a game changer. Then I teach people how to do parts work. Nobody here is one person. Everybody here has an inner family. And the parts of your inner family that you don't have access to, Jung has a quote, until the unconscious is made conscious, it will control your life and you will call it fate. The things that orchestrate your shitty patterns are the parts of your inner family that are in the shadow. And if you learn how to do dream work, they're going to start to poke their heads out. And if you learn how to do parts work, you can actually invite them in and they can become advisors. It's game changer. And so I teach people how to do that for the moon wheel. And then the fire wheel is I try to teach you guys what I taught here today. And I've designed it this way on purpose, because what happens is once we get into the flame wheel, everybody gets triggered. It's happened every time. It's happened every time. And we use dream work and parts work to navigate the triggers. And then by the end of it, people are, fucking ready to go.
Thanks.
Absolutely. All right, final question. Jared, no pressure. Just make it the best one.
Thanks, Eric. Actually, just some logistical questions. What did you say this is the last time you're teaching the course?
So this will be the last time that we're teaching the course, that the course will end in a group event. So I'll teach it a couple of times after this, but we won't know what the events will look like. It'll probably be like a graduation for just the class. But the magic of our big events, this next one is the last one.
That's okay. And then what's the time commitment roughly, would you say? I mean,
hilarious. Yeah. So
because you're going to help me be unoverwhelmed, right? But like,
yeah.
What's the cadence of the classes? And then is the parent thing separate from that?
Yeah. So the class is on Tuesdays at 6 p.m.
Okay.
I'm the only person that has it in the evening, and it's so that some people, like I had a bunch of people from other parts of the world join in. It was super cool. It was really late where they were at, but it's also, I want it to be something that people can do if they have to work, or if, like all the other classes are in the middle of the day, but whatever. So it's at 6 p.m. I tell people I'll keep it at 2 hours, and by like week 2, the class basically revolts and says that they want it to go for 4 hours. And so it's 2 hours. I'll get through the main content in the 2 hours, but everything's recorded and you get all the recordings. I also have a 154-page workbook that has everything in there. So even if you just miss class, it's all right there. And then each Friday, we have an hour-and-a-half long study hall where basically, just ask people, or people ask me questions. And then after I teach people about how to interpret dreams, the study halls tend to just devolve into dream time, but it depends on the class. And then the extra group for the parents will be its own thing. I don't know what time and what day. Once everyone's in the class and we have our group, I basically will ask you guys and then we'll vote. So roughly 3.5 hours per week to be on a call, but it's okay if you miss them. As it applies to instantiating the information, it's going to take years, but I purposefully give the root and the seed for each of them. And then you can do with it what you will.
And one last question, is there a full temple reset this year?
Yeah, I think we're going to do full temple reset in March.
Cool, I'm stoked. I'm going to sign up for this.
Let's go. I love it. Yes. So the group for the parents is open to the alumni of my mentally fit class. So anyone who's taking the first 2 classes, if they have kids, they can be in this group as well.
Well, I got 7 of those, so I'm in it.
I love it.
Cool.
Okay, so thank you guys for staying. I really, really hope to see basically everybody who stayed here the whole time. It's like, I hope to see you in class. And if you truly can't afford this class, and I really, would want to try to call bullshit on that, but if that's actually the case, play the MF game and you can get the last class for free, the online version. And I did that on purpose because I want anyone who wants this information to be able to get it. Thank you guys for staying on. For the people who are going to be joining the class, I can't wait to be in this container with you. And thank you to everyone for taking in this information. And I really hope that you do something with it. Big love.
Thanks, Eric.